I know too many truck drivers that I've talked to that it's almost like the plan is to they don't have an exit out of trucking. It's just I'm just gonna drive the truck. And I love it enough, or I say I love it enough that I'll just do it forever. But I always say, there's gonna come a day in trucking where you either don't want to do it anymore or you're not able to do it anymore. And like you need another way to pay your bills other than you getting in the truck and driving the truck. So I'm listening to a Bigger Pockets interview. I'm not sure if you guys here on the channel are familiar with Bigger Pockets. It's a real estate investing YouTube channel and website. And I ran across Dion McNeeley, my guest today. I ran across his interview on Bigger Pockets. And he has this phrase that he likes to say all the time: make work optional. That's the phrase that he says all the time, like make work optional. So when I heard that, like goosebumps came up on my arm, because that kind of resonates right with, or sounds like it does anyway, like we all need to have an exit strategy. And not just truckers, people from any industry nowadays, I would say, need to have an exit strategy, because everything is so volatile. Like who knows what's going to happen tomorrow, right? So that's why Dion is here today. Welcome to the Helpful Trucker channel, Dion McNeeley. I'm not a professional, man, but I hope that was a good enough intro, man.
That was way better than I would have ever done. But why would your listeners or your viewers care about anything I have to say? I'm talking from their perspective. I was a truck driver after getting out of the Marine Corps, because it downsized in right after Desert Storm, which tells you I'm a dinosaur. I thought, I'm going to drive a truck for a year or two because it's going to take me that long to get on with the police department. So I got my CDL and I drove for 17 years. Then I got on with the police department. The police department, I worked there until 2008 when a recession happened. And when the recession happened, most municipalities make their money from taxes. And when there's a recession going on, not a lot of taxes are being paid. So it's like people think there's no more crime anymore, so we don't need cops. And I got laid off at the same time as a bunch of qualified officers. I'm a single parent. All those years I was a truck driver, I raised 3 kids. So I couldn't get in a truck and drive all over the country. I thought, well, I'll get back in a truck and I'll drive a truck until the recession recovers, and I'll go back into law enforcement. So CDL as a backup while I was a police officer. Got a job for Oak Harbor Freight Lines, was on track to make about $115,000 that year, and they decided to go on strike. So my sources of income kept getting taken away due to things outside of my control. And I thought there has to be a better way to do this. There has to be a way to be ready for your job to go away. What if you can't get a med card? What if DOT regulations change and there's some criteria that you can't meet? Mm-hmm. Autonomous trucks to me aren't a concern. To me, they're a benefit. For the last 10 years, I ran a CDL school. So I'm the president and part owner of Commercial Driver School in Washington State. So another thing I'm hoping to be able to do is share some information with newer drivers or people looking to get their CDL from a behind the scenes perspective of somebody who, in 2020, we trained about 1,994 students, so almost 2,000. Mm-hmm. We have 4 locations. We're opening a 5th right now. My goal is to help people find local driving jobs. So if your goal is to go over the road, you might not like some of the things I have to say about it today. I actually feel like I've kind of been at war with some of the over-the-road trucking companies. I don't want to name any of them, but 5 or 6 of them are not allowed on our property of our campuses, not allowed to recruit. Not allowed to recruit, no posters, no banners. And we're very transparent with our students when we say, if a company pays you by the mile and you're driving over the road, you are not legally being compensated for overtime. That company doesn't even know when you hit 40 hours. When you hit a traffic jam, you're dropping to pennies per hour. You're gone all the time. And the myth in transportation is that you get your CDL and you have to go over the road for 2 years to get your experience. And I can actually explain where that myth comes from, because it's not true. Our company tagline at our CDL school is actually be home every night. When you go to a CDL school, you can get a local job. You might want to screen the school you're going to and make sure that they don't have all of the over-the-road posters and banners all over the wall, because one thing that CDL schools don't usually share is one of the reasons they push over the road and they call you Knights of the Road and they say, see the country and get paid, is because CDL schools can get paid up to $1,300 for every person they trick into going over the road. Our school doesn't do that. We only work with local employers. We do have some over-the-road companies if somebody wants to go over the road and we can't talk them out of it. Like I have had a person come in, who's getting out of the military after 27 years, and he says, look, me and my wife, we love each other. but I've been deployed so much that I'm at home now and we're going to kill each other. I just retired out of the military. I need to get in a truck and go over the country so we could stay married. That made sense. That was the one time I was like, okay, you go do that. But there's way more money in local. An over-the-road driver that I've encountered, most of them start $50,000 to $70,000 a year. Our local employers are starting $70,000 to $100,000 a year. Redaway, Oak Harbor Freight Lines, Old Dominion, all the local LTL companies, they actually pay a livable wage. Whereas if you go over the road, especially if you signed up with a company where you're what do they call it, under contract, they provided the CDL training, so you're then going to work for that company. I would avoid that like the plague, because you want to own your CDL. You want to be able to take it and work somewhere else with it, not be under a no compete order, or have to pay them back if you use your CDL somewhere else.
Makes total sense.
So that's what I focus on with CDL training, is on how to get people local work. My passion is teaching people to make work optional. It does take 10 years. It's not something that you do overnight. It's not like you go out and win the lottery and tomorrow you don't have to work. But imagine how much better the world is if everybody has jobs they want instead of jobs they have to do for money. And the way I figured out how to do it was investing and putting my money to work. If you have anybody out there wants to start getting your mind right, start with the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. This is the mind shift where most people understand the difference between assets and liabilities. Most people will be told your house is going to be the biggest asset you ever own, except it's something that always costs you money until you sell it. So it's not an asset until you sell it. So I lived in a house. I went through a divorce. I was driving a truck, started at the school at $17 an hour as an instructor after getting laid off from the police department and Oak Harbor Freight Lines going on strike. And I thought, I'll just do this till Oak Harbor comes off the strike. Been there 11 years now. Thought I'd be there 3 months. Found out about $89,000 in bad debt in my name that I didn't know about until the divorce. So I was in a bad debt to income position and I wasn't making a lot of money. My brother had retired on real estate. He has 10 paid off rentals and he retired at 50, travels the world. He's got Sea-Doos and quads and side-by-sides. And we spend a month together in Thailand and then a month together in Colombia. So we travel together, but I still work. So he does it all the time. I got to do it 1 month a year. Next year, it's going to be 3. But he invested in a way that I couldn't. He had a paid off house. So he took out a home equity line of credit, used that money to buy a rental, paid it off and rinsed and repeated 10 times. And he had 10 paid off rentals. He makes over 10 grand a month and profit after everything and can do whatever he wants. So how do you get started in real estate if you have bad debt to income, bad debt, not making a lot of money? Before I was an investor, I bought a single family house and it was the white picket fence, raise the kids. This is where I'd live till I retire because I thought I would do, truck driving until Social Security took over, which is most truck drivers' plans. We don't have a pension in a lot of companies. We're putting into 401k, but it's probably not going to be enough. So we don't know what's going to happen. Like you said earlier, I was just going to work until I couldn't, which could be a med card any day, right? So that was a big risk. The biggest risk I think a person takes is only having one source of income.
Yep.
So what I did is I moved from our house into an apartment and rented out the house. Because if you have a bad debt to income ratio and not making a lot of money, there's a way around that by getting rental income on your tax returns. Once you have rental income on your tax returns for 2 years, lenders will look at the rental income of the property you are buying and the one you have in your debt to income ratio. I purchased a duplex. So it's like a house, but there's 2 units, right? They're called different things in different areas. This also would have worked if I bought a house with an ADU or an auxiliary dwelling unit, like a granny flat or a mother-in-law house, but 2 places to live on one property. I had the house rented out. It was making a little bit. My first year was horrible. I screwed up everything. I think I made every mistake you possibly can. But at the 2nd year mark, I had I had the rental income on my tax returns. I purchased the duplex. I moved from the apartment into the duplex. The apartment was $1,500 a month. When I moved into the duplex, it reduced my housing expense from $1,500 to $300. And when you're making $17 an hour, a $1,200 increase to your savings rate is
crazy.
Massive.
Yes.
Right. So it took another 2 years to buy the next duplex, and then a little less than 2 years to buy the next duplex, because there's this thing called the income snowball. As you acquire cash flowing assets, that cash flow adds up. Your ability to save gets faster and faster as long as you avoid life creep. That first 4 to 6 years feels like it takes forever. When you're saving, it took me 2 years to get the down payment for that first duplex, and it didn't even take much. I saved $20,000 in 2 years. So it's not like I had hundreds of thousands to invest.
Mm-hmm.
But when you live on a property, one of the benefits to house hacking is you get to do a lower down payment because it's an owner occupied loan. FHA is 3.5% down for single family houses, so like a house with an ADU. A conventional loan is only 3% down. So if you buy a $300,000 house with a conventional loan, you need $9,000.
Mm-hmm.
That's your down payment. Yeah, you have closing costs, and you need some reserves. The lender's going to want to make sure you have some money, and then you need money for immediate repairs if there's something to do. But I actually prefer to buy rent-ready or already occupied properties because I have a strategy that when I acquire a property that has a tenant in it, my tenants ask me to raise the rent. And that's actually the strategy that got me on Bigger Pockets. So I've been trying to share that with a lot of people because it's a lot easier to invest in real estate if you can have happy tenants who ask you to pay more rent. Now I'm at 16 rental units. I'm still house hacking. I live in a unit of my fourplex. I'm being paid well, now it's more. $2,050 a month to live here is what I'm making to live in this place. That's the profit on just this one property. So if you can buy up to 4 units with an FHA loan, so residential is 4 units or less.
Mm-hmm.
You can buy a fourplex, live in 1 unit. You don't have any shared living space. I'm not rent. You don't have to rent rooms out to people. You don't have to build out a basement or do all these weird things that people talk about. You can literally have your own place, and millions of families live in apartments. Living in a fourplex in one of my own units, where my first house hack was a duplex, it's like living in an apartment, except I get to pick the neighbors.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so my goal now is to help people find the job that they want so that they can work for 5 to 10 years to invest their money and to make work optional. That's the whole purpose of why I got on Bigger Pockets, why I have a YouTube channel. I do live streams every Tuesday, so I answer all the questions. I don't mind answering CDL questions. I can help with that. That's basically my story. I'm hoping I got enough points in there for us to go into any topic that you think we should dig deeper into.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to dig deeper into all of it. I want to kind of go back a little bit.